Hello, dear friends. I am so excited to connect you with someone who has become a friend, and yes, a colleague, and a collaborator. His name is Bruce Cryer, and he will be joining me in the south of France for the Global Luminary Activation Experience. He's also one of the contributing authors to our upcoming book on the top 10 traits of highly resilient people. And Bruce, when you hear his story, you will understand he is truly resilient. He has performed over 800 performances in one of the world's longest running musicals called The Fantastics. He has also been at the helm of one of the most well-known institutions for heart coherence. I'm talking about the Institute for HeartMath. So for any of you coaches or healers or light workers who've heard about the studies about bringing your heart into coherence with your heart rate variability and your breath, well, all of that came from the Institute of HeartMath. And at our event, Bruce will be sharing some of the groundbreaking work that has helped so many of us achieve a state of stress reduction and heart coherence, but what it was like to be at the helm of such a revolutionary company and how he has now transitioned into his new role as the founder of Renaissance Human. And Bruce truly is a Renaissance man. He has been a singer, an actor, an author, a CEO, and now he's really helping people tune into their creativity for well-being, but also for having a new experience of life. And I think you're going to love, if you're coming to Glae, what you experience with him. You're only going to get a taste of it in this interview, but he's actually going to be on stage singing with us, and I'm going to have the opportunity as well to sing with him. So all of that to say, this is a very exciting time for us, specifically at Innate Vitality, the company that I founded that is helping to bring Eastern and Western approaches, ancient wisdom and modern science to help with health and vitality. So Bruce will be a part of that as well. So tune into this short interview where you can learn more about Bruce Cryer and what he will be sharing at our Global Luminary Activation Experience. It is so wonderful to connect with you, Bruce Cryer. I am so thrilled that we will be together on stage in just a few short weeks. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in this Global Luminary Activation Experience and for bringing the wisdom that you hold. For us Lightworkers, us healers, thank you.
Well, thank you for that lovely thought and series of thoughts, and it's a treat for me on so many levels. I admire the work you're doing, Andrea, so much, and the depth of life experience that you bring to what you do is so unusual and so special. And even though we have primarily met through this vehicle, Skype and Zoom and Facebook, I can't wait to make it in person as well. So it's going to be a treat, I think, for me. I have a feeling I'm going to be deeply rewarded from just being there with everyone, and I'm sure that's what's going to happen. So it's a delight.
It is, for sure. I think that's one of the biggest motivators for me, is because getting together with a group of like-hearted individuals who are all truly dedicated to bringing more light and love and healing to the planet. Like, for many of us, we've spent years working alone or feeling like the weirdo because we're all into energy medicine or whatever, or we're, super crusaders as coaches. So being able to come together in a beautiful and inspiring setting, all with this shared purpose of raising up more of our confidence and our light to shine in the world. But you have an interesting background. Like, you have had the benefit of working with a very close-knit team when you were working for the Institute of HeartMath, which, those of us in the field, we have been, citing your studies for years and years to back up what we have been feeling as heart-centered empaths and healers. So,
Exactly.
Tell me a bit about what that was like to be able to be in the very beginning, one of the founding members of the Institute of HeartMath, and being able to work with such a, at the time, like such a revolutionary idea and team of individuals?
Well, it's a great question. And the first thing that actually comes to mind is, like so many things you get involved in, you have no idea what you're really getting yourself into,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you don't know. And so it's a constant adventure. And I was very taken with the vision of the founder, Doc Childrey, when he invited me to be part of the original team. I was very taken because I felt that number one, a system of tools, which is what he wanted to create and then call it HeartMath, a system of tools based on the heart and heart intelligence was absolutely needed. And at the same time, how would that be different from other similarly heart-based things that were kind of already out there? So his emphasis on science and his desire to really use the tools of mainstream science, not avant-garde science. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we thought, well, we're not going to prove anything if we're using tools that are not yet accepted. We have to be kind of right down the center of where doctors can look at how we did the research and what we were measuring and say, okay, they've got valid approaches, so we should take this seriously. So that was very impressive to me and kind of gave me another level of, wow, this could really do something. Because if we are able to really prove some things that stand the test of the skeptics, the medical skeptics, and we're creating techniques that really can open a person's heart and help them have more flexibility and fun and ease and wisdom, and understand what to do with all that empathy they're feeling and not get totally drained by it and become a basket case thanks to how empathic they are. Wow, we've achieved something. And so, I think there was this sense of adventure. There was like 30 of us at the beginning. It was a group, a significant group. And part of why we had that many really was, well, number one, there was a lot of people attracted to the idea that had kind of either known Doc or had been involved in other kind of similar work. But we also instantly had a 160-acre property in the mountains that was a serious fixer-upper. And so bodies were needed to just turn houses into livable spaces, and rooms into classrooms, and an old walk-in freezer into a lab. I mean, just really powerful, important stuff. Where's the septic system? I don't know. Let's start digging.
Wow.
Seriously, things like that. So there was a sense of kind of out on the we've gone west and we're great new frontier out there. There was that kind of energy to it, as well as just the fun and the camaraderie of being part of a mission that all of us felt could have a significant impact on the world. And I'll never forget, there was one moment in this process as we were kind of getting this going when I said out loud, I am dedicating my life to the path of the heart. And I had never had that as a conscious intention, although I already considered myself a pretty loving, caring guy. But now it's like, no, this is a whole nother thing here. And little did I know what that would really entail until you kind of get in it. But there's so many stories, as you can imagine. But I think part of what excites me about meeting the folks in France and of September is that it seems like just about everyone is on their own version of that, but they haven't necessarily had the benefit of a community that provides enormous support when you're going through wild things that are big issues that we went through. So having that support was huge, and I look forward to being able to be part of that support system in the Glae experience, because I've been down those roads of how do you stick together and how do you not over personalize certain things when you're not getting the response you expected from that email or from that press release or whatever it is, and having some perspective, using heart tools in the dealing with the different phases of being an entrepreneur and just living in 2019.
So tell us about that then, the specific approach that you're going to be sharing with our luminaries. So we have people who will be at various stages of business, the people who, like you, are just making this declaration that this is no longer a job for me, this is part of my path of living as a heart-centered and soul-inspired entrepreneur. So we have people who are just in that stage of declaration, all the way through getting their personal brand up, writing books, doing TED Talks, and then having a global presence in the world through the media or through their retreats. So which of the approaches from HeartMath do you think are going to be most relevant to this audience? Certainly having just your expertise and your heart beaming is going to be useful, but what are the practical things that we'll learn?
Well, I think one of the things that has given HeartMath its acclaim, in addition to the science, is the simplicity of the techniques and the ease of using them in the middle of your daily drive, in the middle of a meeting, right before a tough phone call, right after you got angry and you're kicking yourself and you're feeling guilty. How could I do that? I'm supposed to be a man of the heart. How could I have said those words? All those things that can happen, they're just real life stuff. The simplicity of the techniques is powerful. And so I'll be sharing a couple of techniques. And I think one of the things that HeartMath learned, partly based on the science, was that as soon as you start to regulate your breathing, you're starting to set up an internal condition where being more aligned on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is more possible. So pretty much every HeartMath technique involves regulating your breath. And before long, you realize that's like one of my best friends is my breath. Just taking a deep breath. There we go. It's not quite like getting a shoulder massage, but it's close. And it's right there. And nobody else has to be around. And so HeartMath is much more than breathing, as you know, but it is a fundamental piece. And just that part, it does start to facilitate from the standpoint of what is called the autonomic nervous system, where balance starts to come into that system, which otherwise is probably fighting itself because of feeling frustrated or worried or overwhelmed. So there's a kind of a simplicity and a practicality of in the moment, partly because of the breathing and partly because of the even the more important step of trying to engage a positive emotion like appreciation, like peacefulness, like fun. The combination can provide instant shifts in perception and attitude, not necessarily all the way from abject horror to love, but a long way along that spectrum. So yeah, I think there's this kind of, as I said, simplicity, practicality, the fact that they can be used in the moment. Some of the techniques, it's fine to do them eyes wide open while you're talking to somebody, and they have no idea because you're not looking weird. You look normal. What's she doing right now? Nothing. She's just being normal, but she's acting different. Something. So did that answer the question sufficiently?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's going to be awesome to be able to hear from one of the founding members of HeartMath, because again, so many of us have cited the studies and the science behind what we've been feeling. HeartMath has been able to document. So I'm excited to have you there for that. And the other thing that you'll be sharing at this event with us is a little more of your story, because you've transitioned out of being in the role of CEO of HeartMath, and now you have a new project, or several projects, that are now bringing even more of all of you to the world, including your voice, which we, of course, have in common. So talk to me about this transition and this journey into the project of Renaissance Human.
Well, interesting where I am right now. As you know, I'm sitting in a conference room at the faculty club of Stanford University. So I've been teaching at Stanford for 23 years, which is like, I'm not old enough to have done that, but I started, when I was 6, that's right, 6. And, but I bring that up because I've been teaching HeartMath here in various guises through the business school, through the hospital, for the last 12 years, through the employee wellness program. But along the way, as my life had started to transition back in 2011 when I stepped down as CEO, that transition was huge for me, but it was at the tail end of this journey that I was in for 2 years prior, which involved cancer, surgery for the cancer, treatments for the cancer. I'm coming up on 10 years cancer-free, so everything is hunky-dory in that regard, so everything's great. But there were complications. Got staph infections. The staph spread into my blood. It turned out to be MRSA. So all the scary stuff was happening. had to have a PICC line to infuse antibiotics for 6 weeks for 6 hours a day. So it was a sobering time, to say the least. And although there were some humorous highlights that, like, what? That happened? Thank you. That lightened up the whole thing. Like one time in particular, I was leading a webinar which was happening in the UK. I was doing it from my bed, and there was a tube into my arm. And the nurse had come to change the dressing, to come to the house. And I told her to come early because I was going to be doing this live webinar to the UK. And she remembered everything except the part about coming early. So she arrived on time, and the webinar had started. So she is like out of picture of, you couldn't see me on camera, but out of the screen was my arm having the dressing changed, and they had to take a tube out and all this. And I was just kind of carrying on and talking and describing HeartMath. And all of a sudden I get wet, and she screams, and I'm suddenly getting wet.
No.
And of course, my first thought was, is it blood? And it was just saline solution. And the line had come loose, and all of a sudden it was spraying me with saline. I just kind of carried on, and nobody knew anything had happened. Later on, I was telling somebody, do you know anything about what was going on for me when I was doing that webinar? They said, we had no idea. You were so professional. Anyhow, it was a wild time, and later I had to have both hips replaced. They were already in decline, but all that my body was dealing with meant the decline accelerated. So all this was a very sobering period, but as I was having lots of hours and nights and even days kind of flat on my back, having just gone through some procedure or waiting for the next one or whatever it was, lots of time to just ponder my life and am I going to make it? And then when it appeared pretty strongly, yeah, I'm getting out of the woods here. Finally, the staph infections had stopped, and the new tests were showing no sign of cancer. So I seemed to be improving. And then when I got into the hip replacement, it was like, you're going to be good. Like the doctor was a cheerleader, and he was the energy I needed. And kind of like, okay, I believe you. I'm choosing to believe you that I will have a great life after all. And then this creativity urge started to awaken, and I realized, I can't just go back to everything the way it was. And I had to sing, and I had to express myself in some ways more creatively. I thought dancing was off the table because I was about to have both hips replaced. Little did I know. Watch out. I got titanium hips.
Watch out.
That's right. So anyhow, it was a significant transition, and basically I began to realize a rebirth was happening for me. And as I got more into singing and started a project called What Makes Your Heart Sing with my dear friend Gary Melkin, and that became kind of a thing. And then I was actually able to dance again, and I discovered this was a fantastic way to rehab from the hip replacement surgeries. It became a huge part of my life, and it kind of the genie was out of the bottle, creatively speaking. And so people were saying to me off and on, you're like a Renaissance man. You're the bionic man, and you're like a Renaissance man. You're like you've been reborn. And I said, yeah, I know. That's exactly what's going on. And little by little, I kind of embraced that and accepted even more. Like, I am fundamentally a creative person. I love business. I love mentoring. I love strategy and all that. But if I didn't have opportunities to sing or to dance or to create in artistic ways, I would not be whole. Yeah. So the business isn't going to do it for me. It's not going to be enough, even though I'd still love to do it. Yeah. So this idea of Renaissance man, Renaissance human, because I said Renaissance man, that's pretty old fashioned. You kind of missed out on 4 billion people. So important people who in their own ways are having Renaissance all the time anyhow. So I began to imagine what's a Renaissance human, and what does that even look like? And so that became a theme for me in a book that you're going to probably help me with, as well as an album and online course. And there's a whole bunch of things, and it also then spawned the creation of workshops around creativity for well-being, which is why I'm here at Stanford. So in addition to teaching HeartMath, I now teach this course I developed for Stanford called around creativity for well-being. So it's kind of saying to everybody, hey guys, meaning the human race, we're all fundamentally creative, or we wouldn't be able to create life. So don't tell me you're not creative. Right. Yeah, you may not sing like Andrea. You may not paint like Pablo. You may not whatever. That doesn't mean you're not fundamentally creative. And your gift may not be artistic, but your creative gift may be in how you build relationships and how you solve problems and how you find a balanced life, because all of it takes creativity.
Right.
We're having a creative experience right now, you and I. This is not scripted. I'm not reading from a narration. You're not reading from it. We're in the moment creating an experience. And that's happening all the time. We don't normally think of it that way. So that's kind of become my passion now, is I'm onto that. And I'm realizing that I came out of that whole period of my life and realized I need to recreate kind of everything. And then I realized, but that's fun. That's what I live for, actually.
Exactly.
It's just like work. It's more like that's what we're supposed to do. Like I look at it now that human beings, what being human means is that we're continually birthing new parts of ourselves. In some cases, it's all programmed in, like puberty, like menopause, like parts of our physiology and our biology changing. But we see a new country and a new part gets awakened. We take a certain course, we study with a certain teacher, something gets awakened, and we start to nurture that. Well, that's a part of us that's being born, it's being birthed. So I look at the Renaissance human as actually everybody's a Renaissance human. Yeah. And I'm just saying, and what that means is we all get to birth new parts of ourselves, and that's what being human is. Yes. So it's not just about being artistic, although that's fantastic if you like that and if you get fulfillment from those aspects. So that's what I want to share also with the Glae group, is kind of the excitement about realizing, oh, every moment could be a creative moment. Every moment is an opportunity to take what we're feeling. Like I woke up this morning a little bittersweet, and part of it's the moon. I'm a Cancer baby, and I mean, this astrologically speaking, and so I'm affected, and it's close now to the full moon, and so I'm a water. There's emotion. It's I'm very conscious of it and have been much of my life. And I thought, okay, that's what's going on right now. And I got a class to teach today at Stanford, and I got people to see. And my brother, who's dealing with Alzheimer's, I just spent time with him again yesterday. So that was part of what was in there emotionally. I saw my daughter the other day, and she's dealing with a setback to a long-term Lyme disease that she's been dealing with. So there's emotion in me, with these very dear relationships that are struggling, both of whom are struggling. So that was part of it, and part of just sort of acknowledging that's what's going on, but also from the standpoint of not suppressing the reality of those feelings and those very important people in my life, but also, well, where can I go with that to help them? Because if I'm just sort of sad for my brother or sad for my daughter, that's not what they need. Right. With my brother, I treat him like he has no memory issues, and I just talk with him, and he gets like really animated, and he really loves it. He's not totally there, but his nurse, his wife, says, "Wow, Rod, you're doing so great now." And it's just I'm just being positive, and I'm not like, you're confused, or I'm like treating him like an Alzheimer's patient. I'm treating him like who he is. So anyhow, I'm sharing a lot about kind of what's going on in my own world now, but that's, to me, the role of heart-based leader, heart-based entrepreneur, is to be honest about what you really are feeling. Exactly. Not to get stuck there, but to be able to be honest. And then where do I go? What can I create out of this current reality that I'm in, that I feel?
And I love that what you're talking about, and with Renaissance Human, it's about reclaiming or reigniting or reawakening or rebirthing these parts of ourselves, these archetypes, as one of our dear presenters would talk about, like the artist in us. Even if we're not going to paint or draw or sing, bringing forth the artist who could start to look at situations, relationships, problems from a more artistic side can help us. And I love that for you, this rebirth and the Renaissance project is reclaiming that part of you, the singer in you, and that you're teaching people now with this creativity course. And I'm excited to see the online version that we may be collaborating on. I love it because, like, right now, that's what I feel like the world needs. What you described is like sort of a return to a childlike state of wonder and excitement, where instead of getting so bogged down with life or with business or relationships or our health, we can look at it as, okay, this is a little blip in my world. How can I still have fun, still engage, still look forward to a future? And that requires creativity. And let's be honest, we're in an era where artificial intelligence is on the horizon, taking over jobs. And what we hear the experts saying is, there are really two things that robots cannot do that we humans can. And one of them is creative creation, like true creation. And the other is compassionate care. Sure, a robot can fulfill a bunch of things, but it can't be that present, heart-centered being that you are for your brother or for your daughter. And so by reigniting creativity, it reminds us that there's nobody that can replace a human. And so we all need to step it up, I think, a little bit and embrace these parts of ourselves with a new sort of wonder, curiosity, compassion, and awe. So I'm so grateful that you'll be with us to share these experiences, to share more of your personal story. We didn't give it all away, so for those of you who are coming to Glae, you will actually be surprised. Like when I heard your story, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have that kind of resilience. But
well, what I love about that is that I've said many, many, many times, I clearly have a flair for the dramatic, or that set of events wouldn't have happened. Other people don't. They don't need that. They can get awakened with things far less tragic or far less drama. People say, "Wow, that was like a big wake up call." I said, "It's more like a series of wake up calls, because obviously the first one wasn't quite enough. I had to have multiple alarms in the room, all going off at different times." But I while it is obviously a dramatic story, and yes, there's some more elements to the story for sure. It was mine. It was sort of designed just right for me. Yeah. And I think about what other people go through, and I think, God, I can't imagine going through that. There's just no way I would have collapsed. Yeah. So even though I could seem like, wow, amazing what you went through, and yeah, it is, and there's no question it's an interesting story and inspiring to a lot of people. It was designed for me, so it was something that was achievable. And everybody's got versions that you would think, my God, how have you survived that? And how can you, and have you dealt with that degree of restriction in your life, or that degree of trauma in your life, or whatever, and without any tools, without any support system? How have you done that? And look at you now, you're amazing. Like how is this possible? Yeah. And I think so it's humbling. And I often also feel like, even, yes, I had cancer. It was only stage 1. It wasn't stage 4. It hadn't metastasized. There were a lot of things that, as bad as it sounded like it went, could have been so much worse. Yeah. And I'm very aware of that. And I'm very, 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 very grateful that I'm not only alive, but thriving and feeling more turned on by life and more playful and younger in mostly good ways. I think sometimes my emotional age dips into the mid-teens, so that's questionable. But awesome. I think I can pull it off because I've got white hair, so I don't look that immature.
I love it. Well, Bruce, I'm so excited for our connection, and many, many thanks to Paul Luftenegger, who connected us, who will also be at Glae and will be performing music along with you and me and some other musicians who are joining us. We even have gongs coming all the way from Iceland that will be part of this sound therapy experience and sound healing. So I'm so grateful that you're bringing your voice and your music to us here in the beautiful French Riviera. So tell the folks where they can get more information about the Renaissance Human Project and your music.
Sure. Well, the album called Renaissance Human is available wherever digital music is sold. So iTunes, Spotify, especially. There's a lot of other places too, but iTunes and Spotify. Renaissance Human is a Facebook page. It is a website, renaissancehuman.co, not .com, renaissancehuman.co. And actually, I have my own site called brucecrier.com, cleverly named. It's the same as my name, which is like who thinks of that. And so that goes more into the kind of consulting, mentoring, that side of the work that I do. But those are the primary things, and I'm pretty much on most major social medias as my name. So Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Bruce Pryor. Nothing other than that. So
fabulous. Well, I will put all of the links in the description under or to the side of this video so that people can connect with you. I'm so grateful, and I look forward to seeing you in just a few weeks' time. Thank you again for sharing your time and your energy with me for this little interview as well. I know that you've got to go and get ready for your teaching day, so please know that I am truly grateful.
Well, back at you, and it's a joy to see you, a joy to contribute, and I can't wait to have the event. I'm super excited.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay. Take care.